Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this 8th Upskill Marketplace event. If you missed any of our previous sessions, you can find them on our website. For any of you who don't know me or Upskill Marketplace, I'm Hannah and I'm the founder, and I created this tool because I was sick of rolling the dice when it came to training and coaching supplier quality. I was a learning and development professional, so I have lived this problem, and I wanted to create a platform with suppliers curated by learning and development professionals. I was also sick of the fact that pricing was never upfront, and it took way too long to finally find and book trainers. Mark is one of the wonderful suppliers on Upskill Marketplace, so please check out his profile on there. And on top of this amazing session he's put on for us on leading through change, Mark is also offering one lucky member of Upskill Marketplace a free emotional intelligence assessment and report and feedback session worth £395. So I'll drop the link into the chat now to sign up to Upskill Marketplace. It's free and takes less than 2 minutes. And that's how we will pick the winner of this free emotional intelligence assessment. Oops. One moment. For some reason it just said the word sign up, not the link, but there we go. Now I'll give you all a minute just to click on that link and sign up. If you're already a member, don't worry about it. But if you're not a member, you will need to be to win the chance to have the assessment. Signing up will also give you a chance to be kept in the loop for all of our future events. As I said, this is the 8th one. We've got many great ones that we've already ran. We really don't spam. One email a month is probably all I have time for. So don't worry about that. And just to remind you again, this is being recorded, and looking forward to seeing you all signed up. And with that, I will hand over to Mark to get us going.
Thanks very much, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for giving up an hour or possibly an hour of your time today while we have a look at this session on leading through change. And we're going to have a little look at how emotional intelligence fits in with change as well. So my name is Mark Corder, and I've been working as a sort of a trainer, coach, facilitator for the last 10 years for myself through my own company, Mark Corder Limited, and been working with Hannah and various suppliers and clients to sort of help develop people in their workplace and in their personal and professional lives as well. So emotional intelligence is close to my heart. I became a qualified EQI practitioner and assessor about 3.5 years ago. And the value of developing your emotional intelligence is really there to be seen. And hopefully we can link that with change today and over the next 45 minutes, and then hopefully take some questions at the end as well. I notice everyone's got their camera off. It's up to you, completely up to you. I'll be focusing on my presentation, and as it's been recorded, that's not a problem whatsoever. We keep our microphones off, and then we'll take the questions at the end as well. So thank you. Okay then, so what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at trying to understand how we can reframe change. That's that word that everyone is sort of apprehensive about. It sends people running to the hills when they hear it. We're going to try and turn it into a challenge. We like challenges. We like having competition and be a bit more competitive. And we like doing quizzes and tests, perhaps, but not as much change. So we'll see how we can reframe that. We're also going to look at recognizing opportunities from change. We always seem to focus on what can go wrong and what sort of things we don't like, but this is about finding those opportunities, which links us into the third point, trying to be optimistic about change and what comes from those opportunities. Even some of the worst changes that we can imagine, there's usually something we can find to be positive about, and that can help us do that as well. Now, there's lots of change models, and you're probably all familiar with a few of them. Just one I'm going to pick on today. It's one of the most famous ones, and that's the Kubler-Ross change curve. And what we like about it, it comes, by the way, from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who did some studies onto what people go through when they have a bereavement. So it's linked back to a bereavement. And if you look at the emotional response there to a bereavement, you can see we go through the shock, the denial, then we get angry, and then we start thinking about options and what can we do going forward. Might be a bit of a depression there, and at some point we get through the other end. And we might be in a better place at the end of it all because we reflect on the good times and the good things we know about people. And that can happen with change as well. And that's why the two tend to go hand in hand. We've also got other models. We've got the ADKA model in change, Kotter's 8-step change process. All of them, if you notice, all of them have got emotions in them. And that's pretty fair because emotions and change go hand in hand. You can see there, we've got particularly on the curve there, people, when they get to hear about change, it could go into shock, be in denial. It could be a small change. It could be a life-changing change, like being made redundant. It could be something major. And these are the kind of things that people go through. And we want to try and think, well, how can we make this easier? How can we make this better for people? Well, why don't we like change? Why is it a problem for us? Because quite often we're quite happy to be in our comfort zone. We're all nice and comfortable there, and we might resist change for that kind of reason. Happy in our comfort zone, and we don't have to step outside of it and explore the unknown and do the things that are uncertain for us. We don't know what's coming around the corner. So if we've got the chat facility available here, what I'd like you to do is think about the pros of staying in your comfort zone. If you're happy to put a few words in the chat, why might people want to stay in their comfort zone? And we'll just see what we came up with. So jump on the chat there. You can find it on the screen, the little bubble, chat bubble, and just see if we can have some comments. Here we go. So Matt says, people like predictability. I'd agree with that. Yeah, we like to know what's coming. We don't like surprises. Bit of an easier life there. Yeah, from Hannah. Yeah, definitely. It's if you're in your comfort zone, you pretty much know what you're going to get every day. Security, and that could be job security, that could be everything else, safety, all those kind of things. Yeah, some good stuff coming there. People like consistency. You know what's expected of you. You know what's coming. No shocks, no surprises. And again, shock was one of the first things on our change curve. I'll keep an eye on the chat as we go. You're always happy to put more things in. So let's look at the other side of it then. What could be some of the sort of the cons of staying in your comfort zone? If we stay in our comfort zone, what are the not so good things that could happen as a result? Again, please put in the chat. Michelle there, good point. Yeah, no growth. We don't grow, we don't develop, we don't make progress. We're sort of sat in a happy environment. We could be bored, says Andrew. Absolutely. You know, we could be bored because it's the same old all the time, whether that's work or at home. So there's no new challenges, no fresh things. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the chat, but I'll put up some of the things that I came up with earlier. So we'll look at the pros first, or some of the pros. So you've already got existing experience. You know what you're working with. You've got nothing to have to learn or deal with. It's pretty much stuff that you already know. Confidence. If we're in our comfort zone, we're probably confident about the things we can already do. And we haven't got to worry about being put or exposed to a situation where we're not so happy. Less risk involved while we're in our comfort zone because it's comfortable, and all the reasons you can think of. And of course, the tasks are pretty familiar. We know what we're doing every day. There's no new task coming in, no new job that we've got to do and learn and expose ourselves to, which may undermine us. It might, make us make a mistake or embarrass us. We don't want any of that. That's not comfortable. And again, those are emotions. On the con side, of course, if we stay in our comfort zone, we aren't going to gain very many new skills. And these are some of the comments you've put in there in your own words as well. We're going to get fewer opportunities. If we stand still, if we don't go anywhere, things might pass us by. Sometimes we need to jump on the train when it comes into the station and get on it and go and take that opportunity. But again, that's coming out of our comfort zone. People do that all the time, and hopefully don't look back with too many regrets. If we stay where we are, there's fewer rewards as well. We don't get those opportunities. We don't get new experiences. And those are some of the risks. So if we stay in our comfort zone, it could be easy. And if we step out of our comfort zone, it could be more difficult. And this is the same with change in the workplace or at home. If we're making change happen at work, we're taking people some way away from their comfort zone, and it becomes, or straight away in their heads, this is more challenging, this is more difficult now. And that's why I don't want to do it. I don't want to be exposed to that kind of thing. So let's have a look where emotional intelligence fits into this then. So you probably heard of a gentleman called Daniel Goleman. And just a quick introduction, the phrase emotional intelligence has been around since the 1960s. But in all honesty, it was popularized by Daniel Goleman in 1995. He wrote a paper for the Harvard Business Review, and he's been considered a bit of a guru ever since. Now, IQ is about our intellect, and that's pretty fixed. Once you get to the age of about 17, it doesn't tend to move much, maybe 1 or 2 points, but it tends to be consistent. EQ, or emotional quotient, which is linked to our emotional intelligence, you can actually develop that up to about the average age of 65. So those of you that aren't 65 yet, including me, you've still got some measure that you can achieve, you can try and develop it and keep it going. And what Daniel said was, it's defined as the ability to assess and control your own emotions and that of others and groups. Now, straight away, you can see a link here. If you're a leader of a team and you're able to influence people's emotions and that of groups, then you might better help people who are struggling to deal with change and the emotional side of it. Now, what we don't want to do, and what Daniel never advocated, is using it for bad reasons. We don't want to manipulate people. We don't want to use emotional blackmail. It's all about being positive in how we use our influence to help people and their emotions. And that's the whole point of it. So emotional intelligence can play a significant part in change process, both if you're the person where the change is happening to you and how you cope with that, how you deal with it, because your emotions are involved. And also if you're the leader, leading people through change and the influence that you can have on people as well. So Time magazine said that, we shouldn't underestimate the benefits of people having developed levels of emotional intelligence, in your organization, in your own career, in the development of others. It makes a difference. And those of you who are familiar with the concept of emotional intelligence probably already know how it's being valued and used in industry, both in terms of recruitment, selection for promotion, and to develop teams to make them perform better and to harmonize relationships within teams. And of course, it's also great for change, as we'll see. So there are 4 domains of emotional intelligence. The first one is self-awareness, and underneath self-awareness, we've got some competencies. These are just a few of them, so we call them the competencies under the domains. You can see some of those there, they're pretty self-explanatory. Self-management is the next one. There's a few more competencies there. And social awareness is about taking in what's going on around us, being aware of things around us. And a big part of that is empathy. Empathy, understanding what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. So in the change process, understanding what it's like to be the person who's undergoing the change, or the change is being done to them or happening. So it might affect more how we deliver the change, how we involve them, how we recognize what it might be doing to them, their emotions and how they feel. And the final one there is relationship management. There's a few more competencies under that one. So managing relationships is a big part of being a leader and a team player and a team member. Having the developed sense of emotional intelligence around that area can help us get on better as a team. Now, if you look at the competencies, and I've just put a few of them in purple there, those competencies that are made purple are very much heavily involved or can be employed in the change management process. What we're able to do is we're able to think, well, when we're bringing in change or leading on change, some of these competencies have a big role to play. Influencing people, which we've talked about. Not only influencing, but inspiring people towards the change. Being a change catalyst, as you can see there on the right-hand side, working at. Managing conflict, because conflict can come from change when people don't like it or have an issue with it or some concerns. Some people have got one view, other people have got another view. So we've got some particular parts there that particularly come to the fore in terms of emotional intelligence when we're dealing with change. If we move back across to social awareness, empathy again plays a key role. Let's be empathetic as leaders and understand what it must be like for the people who we lead to go through this change, maybe another change. It could be organizational, it could be personal, it could be some change in their life that's going on. And we need to be able to help them and understand how we can help them. In order to do that, to show some empathy towards their situation. Organizational awareness, so how things work in the organization, the right way of doing things, what we tend to do here, a little bit of culture in there as well. So if we understand how the organization works and what's acceptable and what isn't, it will help us with the people we lead and managing the change. Let's jump across again to self-management. So this is inward looking. This is about how you manage yourself as a leader or as a professional. And it's about, when we're talking about change, we need to be transparent. If people think and find out that we've hid things, that we've got our hidden agenda, it's not going to do us very good as a leader, and people aren't going to believe us and believe any new or future change initiatives either. Of course, change means being willing to change, and we need to be adaptable as well. The worst thing we can do as a leader when change is coming is not get behind it, because if we don't believe in it, we can't really sell it to the people we work with and the people we lead. They're not going to believe it if we don't believe it. So we need to be adaptable and accept it. As it's quite a well-known cliche and a phrase, but there's nothing as more constant as change. So change is a constant. We have to get used to it and accept it. We either stay where we are and get left behind, or we move forward with it as well. There's a couple more on there. So initiative, it's about taking the initiative. Let's take the initiative with change rather than let it be done to us. Let's jump on board. Let's get involved rather than be a passenger. Because when you're a passenger in a car, you get driven where you're taken. If you're the driver of the car, you get to choose the direction. So being on the change team, being part of it helps us influence things. And if we're a leader of people, our people will expect us to have some influence in the change, not to represent their interests as well as the benefits of, providing or leading us to a good possible outcome. And the final one there that I've put in purple is optimism. And we're actually going to look at optimism in a bit more depth and detail a bit later on. But emotional intelligent people tend to be optimistic. They tend to see the good and the positive in things. And we like being surrounded by optimistic people. Won't be the first time you'll hear me say this, but optimism is infectious just as much as pessimism is. And we all know there's a phrase I use when there's people who are going around an organization and they're being in doom and gloom and they're not being very happy about things. I call them morale vampires because they suck it out of everyone, and all the goodness and all the happiness, it's easily to be placed with a morale vampire, and all of a sudden you can be feeling the same way. If everyone's more optimistic with a developed level of emotional intelligence, the world can be a better place, but any change in your organization can be much easier to deal with and cope with as well. So there's some of the links straight away. You've got a quick overview of emotional intelligence. There's books and books on this. I think Goleman's written about 10 on his own, but there's lots of time you could spend on this. You could do a whole course on it, but that's just a quick high-level overview about some of the key parts. How does it benefit us in the workplace then, or as an individual, if we have developed emotional intelligence? Well, you can see across the top there's 3 areas. We're thinking on a personal level, thinking on a professional level in the workplace, and then above that, we've got the organization. And underneath that, we've got all the different parts to play of where emotional intelligence can fit in. Now, if we look in the bottom corner there, change, because that's what we're talking about today, change along with trust and openness and morale, they go along all of them. If you can get used to the idea of change, you can learn how to develop yourself and be open to change and pass that on to other people. It's going to make a great benefit to you, not just for yourself, but your team, you as a professional and an individual as a person, and also your organization. Because if we've got more people being able to cope with change and deal with change and having more sort of developed levels of emotional intelligence, it's going to help get change through and make us successful. And of course, we've used the word change a lot so far and haven't really started talking about making it a challenge yet. So that's what we need to do next. We need to think about how we are going to reframe things, how we're going to sort of overcome people's resistance. Remember at the start, I said that people don't really like change, they resist it, but we quite like a challenge. And the good news is, because people can be quite competitive, many people like a challenge as long as it's achievable. If you give them something that they see straight away is impossible, it turns people off. People like a challenge that they think, I've got a chance, I've got a fighting chance with that. And that's the whole point. And it can be very satisfying to look back and see something we've achieved because it was a challenge and we've overcome it. It also gets to be a habit. The more times we challenge ourselves, the more things we do, the more things we achieve, the next thing we want. You hear of people take up running and they do their first 5K, their couch to 5K, and then they get there in the end and they want to stretch it and they go for a 10K, then a half marathon, then a marathon. And all of a sudden, you've got people now who are doing 50 marathons in 50 days, like Eddie Izzard did. That's a bit of a tongue twister, that name, isn't it? And, this is the kind of thing people do. They look for the next challenge. And if we can start thinking of change as a challenge instead, that's going to help win the hearts and minds of people, especially when they might be considered to be on the receiving end of it, or if they think they are as well. Because people like a challenge and we need to get them involved with it. We need to involve them. Rather than do change to people, we need to involve them and maybe reframe it in a different way. I want to use a worked example. It's a made up example, but it's something that we might be familiar with. Let's imagine that we're the leader. Senior management has informed us that as the middle manager, our department is too large, too many people, too crowded workspace, not enough room. We need to move to a new building, a bigger building. Forget COVID, because everyone's probably working from home at COVID. So we get past COVID and we're back into the workplace, and we've probably still got some issues to think about in terms of space. So we're probably going to need to relocate. Now, senior management have already got a solution for us. They've already decided that there's a nice building 15 miles away, a new venue, and we can all just move our department there. Excuse me. Now, you can already imagine what that's going to go down like when you go into the office and say to everyone, Just so you know, in a few weeks' time, we're all going to be moving 15 miles away and we'll be working there. You can just imagine the uproar, you can imagine the face, the look on people's faces, how well that's going to be taken. And all of a sudden, you just remembered that you're the person that's got to oversee this. So you're the person that's got to work with these people, deliver the job, deliver the current KPIs and objectives, and also move a group of people to a new venue. Think of the issues involved there, the logistics involved, how people will feel about a new building, the commuting that might change for them. It might be nearer for some, but further away for others. All the issues involved, and just the fact that the upheaval of not being able to sit and do their job, maybe Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, because they've got to pack up, move, unpack, and then maybe come back to hundreds of emails. This is the kind of thing that goes through people's minds. I've seen it, I've been involved in it. People don't like that kind of level of change. It's huge. So we need to think about, well, how can we make this as a challenge instead? And actually take it back a step. Let's not talk about the moving bit yet. Let's just reframe it as a challenge. So we've got our team in a huge venue, not enough room. They're all overcrowded, and we're going to call a team meeting. So you tell the team, need you to come to a meeting because I want you to help me overcome a challenge that we're all facing together. Okay, think of the word in there. We're all facing together. We're all in this together. I'm not in a boat and they're in a different boat. We're all in the same boat. And it's a challenge. And you've used the word help. People like to be helpful. It's a powerful thing to ask for someone's help. Who doesn't like to be helpful? Who doesn't like to be seen to be helpful? So the kind of the way you phrase it is important there. And unless we're a very unpopular leader who's got a lack of respect from people and maybe low levels of emotional intelligence, perhaps particularly poor relationship management, the team is likely to respond well to your request for help because you've also said it's a challenge. So we inform them that, if they haven't already realized it, the team's grown in size and we're struggling for space here. So we need a solution. Now we know that senior management has already given us a possible solution, but we're going to hold back on that because we don't want people to be constrained by that or affected by that yet. So we're going to set the scene and say, right, we're going to have another meeting. I want you to think about this problem we've got, the problem of the volume of people in the building we've got at the moment, and we're going to have to overcome that somehow. Have a think about it over the next couple of days. We'll get back together and we'll have a brainstorming meeting to discuss how we can work together to overcome this challenge, to work together to find a solution that is going to work for us. You haven't mentioned the word change, and you haven't told them that senior management want you to move to a building 15 miles away, because once that's done, everything is just going to be fixated about that and nothing else. And they won't believe that there's any chance of any ideas coming out because senior management will just do what they want anyway. So we need to have the meeting and come up with solutions. And we're part of that as well. We'll go along to the meeting. We'll brainstorm it with them. We don't have to share it. You can invite someone in your team to share it. And then come up with a range of solutions from the ridiculous to the possible. And then we need to find a way of honing them down to a small manageable number. There's lots of processes for that. We could use Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats, where we go through every solution and wear all the different hats to come up with which ones are going to work and which ones don't. Now we need to stick to the rules. So once we said what the rules are for the brainstorming, we stick to that. Doesn't look like we're going to introduce things as we go because people might get sort of cynical about that. But we'll end up with 2 or 3 best fit solutions at the end of it. And these would be the solutions that we, as the leader, are going to table back to the senior management. Now, it might be that one of the solutions is the one that the senior management offered. And it could be that that's the case, but it's probably unlikely. It might be that because this team is closer to the action, they know how the job works, they're sort of more involved in it, they'll probably be quite creative and come up with something that works, that is different to the senior manager's one solution, but is actually palatable to the team. And why wouldn't it be palatable? Because they mentioned it in the first place, they came up with it. So the team members are going to be great at finding solutions. They're more likely to buy into it because they've been involved, consulted, and they were asked for their opinion and ideas. You've framed it as a challenge, not a change. And you haven't told them that there's already an option being considered because we don't want to constrain people's thinking or attitude towards it. So we're looking at finding a solution, and that's going to be the path forward in order to hopefully manage the team and get a happy outcome for everyone when all this happens. Now, when you go back and report to the senior leadership team about what your recommendations are, it might be they think, oh, that's a great idea. We never thought of that. We just assumed that the solution was to go and move into another building 15 miles away. So it doesn't mean that things are already decided. We can persuade people above us to be open to the idea of change and our influence as well. And we need to make sure people know that. Give them a chance. Now, if you want to think about your emotional intelligence levels here, and if you're fairly well developed, all those competencies we talked about will help you go through this process. And there's nothing underhand in either. You're just giving people a chance to think freely without having an idea already put on the table from senior management. Okay. If you want to put anything in the chat box, happy to do that. I'm keeping an eye on chat. Any questions, any comments, but particularly the questions we can save till the end. Okay, so moving on. So what we're doing, we're talking about a change and we're talking about the challenge. Now we're going to think about how we can find opportunities, because any part of change or challenge process is going to identify some possible opportunities that are come out of it as a result. Whether it's enforced change in the form of a challenge, there's always going to be opportunities, and we just need to look for those. And that kind of thinking about the opportunities might mitigate any negativity. And there's always going to be negativity. So, we know people like to have opportunities, but if we can explore what the opportunities are from the challenge, it might make it all more palatable and more reasonable. So in the chat box then, I want you to think about what opportunities could arise from someone being told in 4 weeks' time you're going to be made redundant. Now, we know all the downsides to that. We know all the bad stuff, all the negativity that's going to happen. It's natural to go through the Kubler-Ross change curve and to go down into the depression, and it could take a while to get through that. But if you were talking to somebody who told you that they were going to be made redundant, what kind of opportunities could you explore with them, that could come of this, trying to find the good in the bad, as opposed to focusing on all the bad stuff? Just, I'll look at the chat and see your stuff coming in there if you want to put some ideas in. Okay, so this is the kind of thing I was expecting and hoping for. Matt said there are a chance to try a different avenue. Absolutely. We may have always had an inkling to do something else, but we're scared to just go and leave our job. We like our comfort zone, which we've already explored. If it's forced upon us, we might just think, well, I've got a chance now to take that risk, to do that thing I wanted to do that I was never really confident enough to do. So thanks for that, Matt. There's an opportunity to sort of change career, change direction, get a better job with more money. Taking away my thunder here, because I've got a list as well on my screen, and that I wrote down before, and you've done that. Great. Develop and realize unexplored skills. Thanks, John. Absolutely. So there's opportunities here of losing a job but gaining something afterwards as well. Hannah's put there, could do what they currently do but for themselves and start a business. I wonder where you got that idea from, Hannah. And Faye has said, assess their work-life balance and what they want going forward. It is a great chance to stop and take stock of everything, because it's been forced upon you. Not many people like to put themselves in certain situations, but when they are, we've got to find the good in it. We've got to find, because there's no point in being pessimistic. I was at a conference, and I went to a conference, and the guest speaker was Gerald Ratner. Now, some of you may have heard of Gerald Ratner, but he had the Ratner jewelry business in the late 1980s. I'm showing my age here. And he went on to BBC television and said how rubbish all the jewelry was. He meant it as a joke, but unfortunately it was the end of his business overnight. And he was a couple of £1 billion in debt by the end of it all. We're talking billions, not millions. And he's a bit of an after dinner speaker now, and he's written a lot on it as well. And he spent 7 years sat in his bedroom feeling sorry for himself when he'd lost everything. And his wife came to knock on the room one day, and she said, look, you can't keep doing this. I'm not going to stay with you forever if you're just going to lull about for all this time. You've got the skills to run a business. You've got the background. You've been made redundant. It's all wiped. You start again, but you can do it. And she talked him into doing something else. And he set up a gym, got some people together, some investors, set up a gym, then moved from a gym to an online jewelry store. So he's now back selling jewelry online. And he's now doing the circuit as a speaker and doing lots of things as well with his book. Turned his life around completely, because his wife helped him focus on what you can do, not what you've lost, and what you can't do. And that's it. It's about reframing things. People with good levels of emotional intelligence are able to see that, are able to be optimistic, because optimism is one of our competencies. So it's trying to find the good in things, trying to find the opportunities that we've covered, and the optimism of seeing the benefits of things. When change comes, it's an opportunity, it's a benefit, and it's beneficial to explore those opportunities to find the good. What is coming along I could get involved with here? Okay, so that's the need to be optimistic, and again, it's part of emotional intelligence. And we've got there the summary of these three things we talked about: the challenge, opportunity, and optimism. Now, people react better if they see something as a challenge, and if they're involved in it, even better. So let's involve them in it. and an exploration of opportunities and a focus on being optimistic. You add those 3 ingredients together, change doesn't seem so bad. Now, it might be, that's why we have coaching. It might be that people need help, but it's also why we have leaders, because our job as a leader with our emotional intelligence is to help with that as well. Okay, so let's see if we can add the 3 ingredients together and think of that as a focus going forwards. By the way, we'll make these slides available as a PDF so that people can have a look through this themselves as well. Now, how do we know what levels of emotional intelligence people have got? I've used the phrase developed and that kind of thing, but where are we? What do we start with? Well, we've got a tool. We've got a tool called the EQI 2.0 assessment tool, and it's been around for a while. It stood the test of time, and it's made up of some sort of composites there, which are the main things around the circle. So stress management, self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal, and decision making. And those different composites there have subscales underneath them, and they're all on the left. So we've got a total of 15 subscales. If you look at the very bottom, optimism is one of them. So when you take an EQI test, you basically have 15 to 20 minutes. That's all it takes. And you complete an online questionnaire, multiple choice questions. There's 133 questions, but they're not to be dwelled on. You just get on and do them. And that's why it takes 15 to 20 minutes. And then you get a very good and accurate report come out of this. Now that page on the left there, that piece on the left is just 1 page from the report. The report's 21 pages, and it tells you all about yourself in the context of how you've completed the assessment, which is a workplace assessment. So you answer the questions about you in the workplace, and it tells you a good narrative about your different scores. 100 is the average, just like IQ, 100 is the average emotional intelligence for each score. So you can see on the screen there, the individual's got quite a developed sense of emotional intelligence in most areas. I think there's only 1 below 100, which is independence, which is a score of 98. But the importance of this as well is the balance. It's not about having a high EQ, it's about having a balanced EQ, so that you're in balance, so that some of the things, pretty much where they relate, they're in balance with each other. For example, if you've got a really high score of empathy, let's say your score of empathy was really high, like 125, something like that, and you've got a really low score of problem solving, so you're not very good at solving emotional problems, which is the one underneath in decision making. It might be that you really want to help people all the time, but you're not great at making decisions with them because your problem solving score is low. So you're not great at solving people's problems. You're trying to solve people's problems, but it doesn't go very well. That's why the balance is important. The numbers correlating with the other sort of subscales, if you like. And the report covers every single subscale. It goes through them all from start to finish, and it tells you which ones are in balance, which ones aren't, and the things you might consider doing to develop yourself. And you can get the report on your own. Typically, though, you'll need it to be explained to you and sort of the feedback to go with it, which is what the person providing you with the report does. And on the screen there, you can see a link there. So when I send you the PDF, if you want to get the whole 21 pages of an example, you can click on that and you can download a copy of the example report. And it's worth considering. And one of you lucky people is going to get one of these for free. And I'll be the person to deal with that and deliver that. So, we'll get you to do the assessment online. And then at a time of your convenience, I can spend with you 60 to 90 minutes interpreting the report and telling you what it's all about. And sometimes people go on the extra journey, they decide, well, some of these scores I'm not happy with, they're a bit low or they're not in balance, and they go through a coaching program. And that's the add-on option for people to have. I'm not advocating that today. I'm just saying there's a free one here for a lucky person who signs up for the Upskill marketplace. So those are the kind of things that we need to consider, developing our emotional intelligence, having the emotional intelligence of our leaders developed is going to make the whole change process much smoother for the people involved and the people delivering it, and then think about the different takes on it and how you would do it. So, we're looking at those challenges instead of changes. We're looking at what opportunities can we get from this? And maybe as well, let's try and think of it as the glass half full, being optimistic. But what we don't need to do is we don't need to be, not in touch with our reality. Now, if you look on the model on the screen there, under decision making, the second one under that is reality testing. So being optimistic is fine, but you've still got to be in touch with reality and know what's going on, because we can be too optimistic and and lose all sense of risk. And we're not saying that. That's why the balance. Have optimism, but have a good sense of reality testing as well. And this is why all these things meld together and go hand in hand. Okay, so I didn't want to take up more time than was necessary. That's a whistle-stop tour of what I wanted to do. And, you know, I'll hand you back to Hannah now, because I'm sure we've got time for some questions.